Not every smile is safe. Not every warm hug is sincere. Sometimes the people who sit closest to you at the table are the ones who slowly drain your spirit, one gentle gesture at a time. They don't break your heart with cruelty, but with presence. They show up, they laugh, they listen, and somehow when they leave, so does your peace. Have you ever walked out of a conversation feeling lighter in the body, but heavier in the soul? Like a weight you didn't carry and had just been placed on your back? There are people who don't hurt you with words. They don't yell or criticize. They simply exist beside you, and you feel yourself slipping. This is not a superstition. This is not about seeing demons and shadows. It's about understanding energy, how some people nourish your being and others, even without meaning to, drain it. We call them friends. We call them family. But deep down, something inside whispers, this isn't right. I've met people who bring light into the room, but I've also known those who arrive and make silence feel heavy, laughter feel hollow. You feel obligated to be there for them, to listen, to stay. But have you ever asked yourself, why do I always feel tired after talking to this person? If that question has echoed in your mind even once, you already know the answer. This conversation is not about blame. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about learning how to protect your inner peace when no one else will do it for you. Because the truth is, your peace is your responsibility. And not everyone who wants access to your life deserves a seat in your spirit. Some people, knowingly or not, carry energies that don't align with your path. Their presence becomes a weight. Their words plant confusion. Their support is conditional on your weakness. And while they may look like a friend, the energy says otherwise. So let me ask you, gently but clearly, is there someone in your life who seems to love you most when you're at your worst? Someone who always has advice but never peace? Think about it. Often the ones we call our closest are the ones pulling us farthest from ourselves. In the practice of self-awareness, the first step is not action. It's observation. It's asking, what is this person bringing into my life? Energy doesn't lie, and your discomfort around someone isn't a flaw, it's a signal. A quiet voice from within asking you to pay attention. This isn't about shutting people out in fear, it's about stepping into your own clarity with courage. The light in you is sacred, and anything that dims that light, even softly, even slowly, deserves to be noticed. Not with judgment, but with wisdom. Now that you've begun to observe, you'll notice something strange. Some connections don't shatter you, they slowly stretch you thin. You lose energy, clarity, and even your sense of self little by little. Not in storms, but in silence. Not in conflict, but in confusion. That's the nature of spiritual interference. It doesn't scream, it whispers. That's why we must train ourselves to recognize the subtle signs. In the Shaolin tradition, awareness is our first weapon. When you begin to see clearly, you begin to heal intentionally. So here are 8 signs, quiet, precise, and deeply human, that may show you when someone in your life is not feeding your light, but feeding off it. You don't need to panic, you only need to recognize and perhaps reflect. Sign number 1, you feel drained after every encounter. You walk into the room feeling grounded, hopeful, maybe even excited. But after spending time with them, your body feels tired. Your thoughts are scattered. Your mood is low and you can't explain why. There's no fight, no crisis, just depletion. These are the people who never seem to give back what they take. They don't yell, they don't insult, but being around them is like pouring your energy into a bucket with a hole at the bottom. Have you ever noticed how some conversations leave you refreshed and others leave you hollow? It's not the topic, it's the energy exchange. When your inner light dims after every interaction, pay attention. Something unseen may be taking more than just your time. Sign number 2, they subtly make you doubt yourself. They don't attack your confidence directly. Instead, they plant small seeds of uncertainty. Are you sure that's a good idea? I just don't want you to get hurt. Their words sound caring, but something in the tone feels off, like they're building a cage, not a bridge. Over time, you begin to second-guess your instincts. You hesitate before speaking. You wonder if your dreams are too big or your voice too loud. And you don't know why you feel so unsure of yourself around someone who claims to love you. This is emotional manipulation dressed as concern. It's not always intentional, but its effect is the same. You shrink, you dim, and you start to rely on their approval instead of your own intuition. Let me ask, is there someone who always makes you feel like you're too much or not enough, but never just right? That feeling isn't a weakness, it's a signal. Your soul is asking you to reclaim your clarity. Sign number 3, they only love the broken version of you. When you're struggling, they're supportive. When you're lost, they're present. But the moment you begin to rise, find joy, gain strength, take up space, they pull away. Or worse, they mock you. They make light of your growth. They say things like, "You've changed." What they really mean is, "I preferred you weaker," because your healing no longer serves their need to feel important. Your confidence disturbs their illusion of control. True love doesn't fear your strength, it celebrates it. But people who are attached to your wounds may feel threatened by your wholeness, because when you rise, they can no longer stand above you emotionally. Think about it. Who claps loudest when you suffer, but goes quiet when you succeed? That's not just jealousy, that's spiritual discomfort with your light. And your light is not the problem. Sign number 4, they don't respect your boundaries ever. You tell them you need space. They call you distant. You say you're unavailable. They push harder. You draw a clear line, and they treat it like a personal challenge. Every no you give becomes a negotiation they expect to win. This isn't miscommunication. It's a spiritual violation. Because someone who truly respects your peace will honor your boundaries without needing to be convinced. But someone who only values their access to you will see your limits as an inconvenience. Over time, you stop setting boundaries, not because you don't want them, but because enforcing them feels like a fight. And when peace becomes something you have to earn instead of something you're allowed to claim, the relationship has already become unsafe. Ask yourself this: who in your life consistently ignores your needs but insists they care about you? Love doesn't push past your limits. Love listens, even when it doesn't like the answer. Sign number 5, they imitate you, then undermine you. At first, it feels flattering. They mirror your words, your style, your values. You think, wow, we really connect. But slowly, the admiration turns into imitation, and then into something darker. They begin to use your own essence against you. They copy your ideas, then cast doubt on your originality. They speak like you, then question your authenticity. And worst of all, they turn others against you by using your own reflection, twisted through their lens, which is evidence that you've changed. This is not just insecurity, it's spiritual sabotage. It's a soul-level jealousy that doesn't want to grow, it wants to replace. People like this don't want to shine with you. They want to become you while dimming your light in the process. Pay attention to anyone who seems overly interested in becoming your mirror, yet quietly chips away at your credibility behind closed doors. That's not friendship. That's identity theft with emotional charm. Sign number 6, they use guilt instead of love to keep you close. When they feel you pulling away, they don't reflect. They guilt trip. They say, "After all I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" Or, "So you're just going to walk away now?" These aren't conversations. They're chains disguised as care. Love does not manipulate. It doesn't twist your compassion into a leash. But people who benefit from your silence will always use guilt to keep you small, to keep you close, and to keep you compliant. You begin to feel trapped, not by hatred, but by obligation. And that's when it becomes clear, this isn't a relationship anymore. It's emotional captivity. Has anyone ever made you feel like protecting your peace makes you selfish? That's not love talking. That's control. Real love doesn't use guilt as currency. It uses freedom as its language. Sign number 7, their presence triggers deep, unexplainable anxiety. You're not arguing. There's no conflict. And yet, when they walk into the room, your heart rate shifts, your chest tightens, your mind grows restless, even if their words seem calm and their smile seems kind. Something inside you recoils, and you don't know why. That's not paranoia, that's energy perception. Your body, much wiser than your thinking mind, is reading something your logic hasn't caught up to yet. It's spiritual intuition, an internal compass trying to warn you. We're conditioned to ignore these signals and to give people the benefit of the doubt. But when your nervous system tenses every time someone gets close, don't dismiss that. It's not a flaw in you. It's a message from your spirit saying, you're not safe here. Can you recall someone in your life whose presence always made you uneasy, even when nothing seemed obviously wrong? That tension matters. Peace doesn't need proof, and neither does discomfort. Sign number 8. They pull you away from yourself, not back toward it. Over time, something subtle happens. You don't notice it at first, but the signs are there. Your voice grows quieter, your dreams feel distant. Your values begin to bend, not because you've grown, but because you've started shrinking to keep the connection alive. They don't insult you, they influence you. They shape your choices, your confidence, your self-trust, not with orders, but with suggestion. They make you feel like your authentic self is too much, too intense, too inconvenient. Eventually, you look in the mirror and feel disconnected, like you're watching someone who used to know who they were. And yet, you stay, not out of joy, but out of fear that walking away would mean losing something familiar. Let me ask you gently, who in your life makes you feel more like a version of yourself they approve of, instead of the version you were born to be? That quiet erosion of self is not love, it's spiritual theft. And your return to self is not betrayal, it's healing. Sometimes the most challenging people in our lives are not enemies in disguise, but teachers we didn't recognize. They don't enter our path by mistake. Their presence, however painful, often serves a sacred purpose: to wake us up. You see, in the Shaolin way and in Buddhist thought, we don't believe in random encounters. We believe in energetic contracts. We believe in karma, not as punishment, but as invitation. An invitation to learn, to remember, and to return to clarity. Think of these people not as villains, but as mirrors. They don't create your wounds, but they reflect them. They bring forward the unhealed, the unguarded, the unaware parts of your spirit. And in doing so, they offer you a choice. Will you continue reacting from the old wound, or will you begin responding from awareness? It's not easy to see this when you're in the storm. When someone is draining you, manipulating you, or pushing you into self-doubt, it feels personal. It feels like betrayal. But if you step back, even just for a moment, you might see that what they truly activated in you was your capacity to wake up. Pain has always been one of life's sharpest teachers, and the most persistent lesson it brings is this: what you don't recognize, you will repeat, and what you keep tolerating, you are silently choosing. Why do these people show up just as you begin to grow? Why do they attach themselves just when you try to reclaim your voice? Because your energy is shifting, and when light increases, shadows often rise, not to defeat you, but to be seen and understood. Some call them spiritual attackers, but I call them threshold guardians. They stand at the edge of your personal transformation, and they ask you without words, are you ready to protect your peace, or will you surrender it again like you always have? Many of us have patterns we've inherited. We learn to please others to feel safe. We learn to stay quiet to be loved. We learn that sacrifice makes us good, and boundaries make us selfish. These are not spiritual truths. These are survival responses from a version of you that needed protection. The presence of these draining individuals is often the signal that it's time to retire that old identity, to stop being the one who fixes everything, to stop being the emotional container for people who never pour back into you, and most importantly, to stop betraying yourself just to maintain the illusion of peace. There's a Buddhist teaching that says, the people who disturb your mind the most are your greatest teachers. But this doesn't mean you must let them stay. It means you must let them teach you and then let them go. Some of us confuse spiritual growth with tolerance. We think being awakened means never walking away. But true spiritual wisdom is knowing what to release, when to step back, and how to hold compassion from a distance. Here's something important. You are not being punished by their presence. You are being invited. Invited to choose yourself. Invited to redefine love. Invited to upgrade your standards, not out of pride, but out of alignment. So let me ask you, what have these people taught you about yourself? Not just about them, but about the parts of you that kept choosing silence over truth, that kept saying yes when your spirit screamed no. That stayed long after the connection turned into a wound. You don't have to hate them to move on. You don't need revenge. What you need is recognition. The recognition that you've changed, that you no longer vibrate at the level of manipulation, guilt, or emotional chaos. Sometimes the universe will keep sending the same lesson, just in a different body, until you finally understand what you are being asked to master. And the mastery is not in staying strong for others. It's in being soft enough to feel when something is wrong and strong enough to walk away when it no longer serves your evolution. That is real self-awareness. That is spiritual power. And once you learn that lesson, something powerful happens. Your energy shifts. Your inner frequency rises. You begin to attract different kinds of people. People who respect your space, who honor your growth, who see your soul, not just your usefulness. But first, you must pass the test. The test is not whether you can endure toxic love. The test is whether you will finally stop calling it love at all. Understand this: people who make you question your worth are not meant to define it. People who feel threatened by your light are not your responsibility. And people who only show loyalty to your pain were never loyal to your healing. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to explain your growth. Your job is not to carry their lesson for them, and it's to learn your own. And when you finally release the need for approval from people who never saw your value, you create space for peace. Real peace. Not quiet from walking on eggshells, but peace from finally walking in truth. So if these people have entered your life, don't just ask, why me? Instead ask, what am I being asked to see? The answer to that question is not outside of you. It's been inside all along. And now that you see, you get to choose. Will you continue shrinking to fit their comfort, or will you begin rising into your true self? There's a kind of love that lifts you, and there's a kind that weighs you down. On the surface, they can look almost identical. Supportive words, long conversations, a history that feels too deep to question. But over time, one makes you feel more like yourself. The other makes you question who you are. Real love honors your boundaries. It respects your growth. It doesn't demand you stay small to be accepted. It stands beside you, not above you. And most of all, it does not confuse closeness with control. But emotional manipulation, it's much quieter. It doesn't come with screaming or slamming doors. It comes with passive comments, with guilt-laced sentences like, I guess I just don't matter anymore, or you've changed. It chips away at your confidence slowly, so slowly that you begin to think the damage is your fault. This kind of manipulation doesn't show up in dramatic scenes. It shows up when you're celebrating a small win and they go silent. It shows up when you share your plans and they respond with doubt. Not concern, doubt. And suddenly your joy feels like rebellion, like you've done something wrong by being happy. Love doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't punish your light. It doesn't call your voice too much or your needs inconvenient. But when someone thrives only when you're low and withdraws when you rise, you are not being loved. You are being managed. Here's the hard truth. Not everyone who says I love you means I love all of you. Sometimes what they really mean is, I love the version of you that doesn't challenge me. And when that version begins to disappear, when you start standing taller, dreaming louder, setting boundaries, they say you've changed. But what they mean is you've evolved beyond their comfort. So how do you tell the difference? How do you know whether it's real love or quiet control? Real love makes space for your truth, even when it's inconvenient. It doesn't panic when you set a boundary. It doesn't withdraw affection to manipulate your behavior. It sits with the discomfort. It listens. It grows alongside you. Control, on the other hand, wears the mask of care. It says all the right things, but it moves with one goal: to keep you in the version of yourself they know how to influence. It uses your empathy against you. It makes you feel responsible for their emotions, for their healing, for their stability. And slowly, you stop living your life. You start managing theirs. Can you relate to this? Have you ever felt like you're carrying both your pain and theirs just to keep the relationship from collapsing? That's not connection. That's emotional debt. And you don't owe anyone your peace to prove your love. Sometimes we confuse struggle with depth. We think that relationships filled with attention must mean passion or loyalty or realness. But peace is not boring. Respect is not weakness. And safety, true safety, is not built on chaos. It's built on mutual honor. The Buddha once said, just as a flower does not pick and choose the bees that come to it, a person should not sacrifice themselves to be loved. If the cost of connection is your joy, your clarity, or your self-worth, then that is not a connection. It's captivity. And here's something many people don't hear enough. You are allowed to walk away from anything that requires you to abandon yourself to keep it alive. You are allowed to grieve the fantasy of what that relationship was supposed to be. And then, you are allowed to return to yourself. Because real love doesn't ask you to give more than you have. It meets you where you are. It celebrates your healing. It cheers for your growth. And it stays. Not because you're broken, but because you're whole. Protecting your energy is not about becoming cold. It's not about building walls or cutting people off in anger. It's about recognizing your worth, your frequency, and learning how to say, my peace is sacred, and not everything gets access to it. The first step in protecting your energy is awareness. Not just awareness of others, but awareness of yourself. Pay attention to how your body responds to people. How does your breathing shift? Does your chest tighten? Does your voice soften when it wants to speak louder? These aren't just physical reactions. They are spiritual signals. When you're in alignment, your body is open, calm, grounded. But when you're in the presence of someone whose energy disrupts your field, your system begins to whisper something isn't right. Listen to that voice. It may be the quietest, but it's the most honest. In Shaolin, we are taught that your energy is your temple. Your attention, your time, your presence, these are not small things. They are sacred resources. And just as you wouldn't leave the door of your home open for anyone to enter, you shouldn't leave your inner world wide open to those who don't know how to honor it. So how do you guard that temple without becoming bitter? First, practice stillness. Not just silence, but intentional stillness. The kind that allows the noise to settle so the truth can surface. Sit, breathe, don't rush to understand everything. Sometimes clarity comes not through solving, but through stopping. Even 5 minutes a day of seated silence can change the way you navigate your relationships. In stillness, the body realigns, the mind unclutters, the heart speaks, and the spirit begins to remember what it feels like to be home. Second, set boundaries without apology. A boundary is not a punishment, it's a filter. It doesn't say, you're bad, it says, this is what I need to stay well. You don't owe explanations for every line you draw. Some people will misunderstand, let them. Their discomfort is not your burden to carry. Think of boundaries like gates to a garden. The garden is your peace, your clarity, your focus. Some people will walk in gently, appreciate the beauty, and leave it better than they found it. Others will trample through with heavy feet and entitled hands. It's not unkind to close the gate, it's wise. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you honored your own limits without guilt? If it's been a while, that's your sign. Peace is not earned through exhaustion. It's maintained through clarity. Third, cleanse your space, not just physically, but energetically. In Shaolin temples, we sweep not just for cleanliness, but to symbolically remove stagnant energy. You can do this in your own life. Let go of what no longer serves. That includes objects, conversations, and even commitments. Burning incense, lighting a candle, or simply opening the windows with mindful breathing can reset your inner space. What matters is not the ritual, it's the presence you bring to it. Spiritual hygiene is not mystical, it's practical. And in a world filled with noise, practicing small acts of sacred space keeping becomes an act of rebellion and of healing. Fourth, protect your inner dialogue. You may not be able to control what others say, but you are always responsible for the words you speak to yourself. Do not let external noise become internal poison. When someone speaks over you, speak inwardly with kindness. When they question your path, affirm your purpose. Your thoughts are seeds. Choose what you want to grow. People often ask me, how do I stop people from draining me? And the answer is, you don't. You train yourself to become so rooted in your own energy that others can no longer unbalance you. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to carry. You stop confusing peacekeeping with self-erasure. You stop negotiating your worth in spaces that only benefit from your silence. Fifth, reconnect with your breath. The breath is your anchor. It is the one thing that stays with you from the first moment you enter this life until the moment you leave it. And yet, most of us forget to breathe with awareness. Inhale presence, exhale pressure. When you're around someone who triggers anxiety or confusion, return to the breath. It will always guide you back home. In Buddhist practice, breath is not just air. It is mindfulness in motion. It is the reminder that you are still here, still grounded, still capable of choosing how to respond. Lastly, return to yourself daily, not just when you feel broken, but when you feel fine, when you feel whole. Make a habit of checking in with your inner state, not just your outer schedule. Ask, is this person, this choice, this habit still aligned with who I am becoming? That question alone can realign your entire direction. Because the truth is, returning to yourself isn't something you do once. It's something you do again and again, especially in a world that constantly pulls you away from your center. And remember this, when you protect your energy, some people will leave. Let them. It's not rejection, it's recalibration. The space they leave behind will become the soil for new, life-giving connections to grow. One's rooted not in guilt or fear, but in mutual light. If you've been giving too much, absorbing too much, staying too long, this is your reminder. You are allowed to be peaceful. You are allowed to be unavailable to chaos. You are allowed to choose calm over conflict. Write this into your life. My peace is my responsibility. My energy is my choice. And I do not apologize for protecting what is sacred. You don't need a dramatic goodbye to reclaim your freedom. Sometimes the most powerful exit is a silent one. The moment you stop explaining, stop fixing, and simply stop giving energy to what no longer feeds your peace. Spiritual freedom doesn't begin with others. It begins with you. It begins the moment you stop betraying yourself for the sake of maintaining appearances. The moment you realize that not everyone who wants to be close deserves to be within reach. We are conditioned to hold on, to make excuses, to stay because of history, obligation, or fear of being misunderstood. But staying in places that exhaust your soul is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. And here's the truth, letting go is not the same as giving up. Letting go is choosing your inner alignment over outer approval. It's realizing that peace is not found in fixing broken connections, but in honoring the connection you have with yourself. So many people live in quiet prisons of guilt, of over-explaining, of keeping the peace externally while chaos grows inside. But the doors to those prisons were never locked. We stay because we forget we're allowed to leave. The practice of spiritual freedom is remembering that you are allowed to outgrow people, habits, versions of yourself, even when they once felt like home. Growth is not betrayal, healing is not disloyalty, and boundaries are not punishments. They are portals to a new level of being. Some people will say you've changed. That's okay. You didn't come here to stay the same. You came here to evolve, to return, not to their comfort, but to your clarity. Let me ask you something from the heart. If you knew your peace depended on losing a few people, would you still hesitate? If your freedom asked you to disappoint someone else so you could stop disappointing yourself, what would you choose? You are not here to be owned. You are not here to be emotionally managed. You are not here to be the light switch for people who only come alive when you dim your shine. You are here to embody wholeness, to honor truth, to walk your path without apology. True spiritual liberation isn't loud. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply stops participating in what no longer aligns. You detach not with resentment, but with reverence for the journey you've walked and the person you're becoming. And when you finally begin to live from that space, When your decisions are made from alignment, not fear, you'll notice something beautiful. Your world softens, your body relaxes, your thoughts settle. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You've come home. People may leave. Let them. Their absence is often the clearest sign that your energy is evolving. What's meant for you will meet you on the path ahead, not the one you've already outgrown. And the most powerful part? You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to be understood. You just need to be rooted in your values, in your peace, in your knowing that you have a right to protect what is sacred within you. So walk forward, not in anger but in clarity, not in fear but in faith. You've done enough explaining. You've stayed long enough. Now it's time to rise, to reclaim your stillness, to live from the inside out. Because freedom is not something granted. It's something remembered, something returned to. And no one, not even those you love, should cost you your inner sanctuary. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are simply awake. An awakening, though often lonely, is never wrong. So protect your energy, guard your light, and let the journey ahead be one where you are no longer surviving your connections, but thriving within your spirit. If this message found you at the right time, take a quiet moment and breathe. Breathe into your truth, into your courage, into the version of you that is no longer willing to trade peace for proximity. And if something in this video reminded you of your own path, your own process of letting go, of awakening, of choosing yourself again, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to this space not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. Because here we speak from the stillness beneath the noise. We grow, we remember, and we return. Leave a comment below and share. What part of this message spoke most clearly to your spirit today? I read every word, and your voice might just be the one that reminds someone else they're not alone. And if you feel called to, share this video with someone who may be carrying the weight of a relationship that no longer aligns with their light. It could be the doorway they've been waiting to walk through. You are not alone on this path. You never were. Welcome home.